In life, we often search for peace in places that are far from where it truly resides. We change cities, change jobs, change relationships, believing that if we can just shift our surroundings, we will finally feel different inside. But wherever we go, one truth always follows: we cannot escape ourselves. The mind, the emotions, the memories, the inner dialogue, these remain with us, quietly shaping our reality. The problem is not the world outside. The restlessness we feel does not come from external chaos, but from internal conflict. And the peace we long for is not something we find out there. It is something we must uncover within. But how? How do we stop running? How do we turn inward, face ourselves fully, and walk the path to inner harmony? In this talk, I will share with you a path, a way to return to yourself, not with resistance, but with acceptance, a way to stop escaping and finally begin understanding. Because only through understanding can you cultivate peace, not the peace of a quiet room, but the peace of a quiet mind, even in the loudest world. Most people live their lives looking outward, constantly responding to the world around them, rarely pausing to turn inward and truly observe themselves. We move from one moment to the next, driven by thoughts, emotions, and unconscious patterns that we do not fully understand. The first and most vital step toward finding inner peace is developing self-awareness, cultivating the ability to witness our own mind without judgment or distraction. This awareness is not a thought or an opinion. It is a presence, a state of being that allows us to see ourselves clearly. Self-awareness begins with noticing. It means paying attention to the thoughts that arise in the mind, the feelings that swell in the body, and the impulses that drive our actions. Often, we believe that we are in control, but if we observe carefully, we start to notice how frequently we are reacting rather than consciously choosing. A thought appears, and we follow it. A feeling arises, and we are swept away by it. Without awareness, we become servants to our habits, prisoners of our inner noise. But the moment we begin to observe, we create a gap. In that gap, we find the first opening to peace. To observe oneself requires patience and honesty. It is easy to look at others and see their flaws, their patterns, their mistakes, but it is much more difficult to turn the same gaze inward. We resist this inner look because we are afraid of what we might find: pain, insecurity, confusion, contradiction. And yet, without facing these parts of ourselves, they continue to influence us from the shadows. Self-awareness is like holding a lantern in a dark room. It doesn't change what is in the room, but it allows us to see it, to know it, to stop stumbling over what we were unwilling to face. There are many practices that support the development of self-awareness. Meditation is one of the most direct paths. In stillness, without distraction, we begin to see the endless movement of the mind. We notice how quickly we become bored, how often we seek stimulation, how attached we are to our stories and identities. Breathing becomes a mirror. When the mind is calm, the breath flows smoothly. When we are anxious, it becomes shallow and erratic. Simply observing the breath, without trying to control it, brings us into a more conscious relationship with ourselves. But self-awareness is not limited to formal practice. It can be woven into every moment of life. When we eat, are we truly tasting the food, or are we thinking about the next thing to do? When we speak, are we listening as well, or simply waiting for our turn? When we walk, are we aware of our steps, or lost in thought? Each moment offers an opportunity to return to ourselves, to step out of automatic living and into deliberate presence. Over time, this presence becomes a way of life, not just a technique. One of the greatest challenges on the path to self-awareness is the tendency to judge what we observe. As we begin to see our fears, our anger, our attachments, the mind may respond with shame or resistance. But self-awareness is not about condemnation. It is not about labeling things as good or bad. It is about seeing clearly without distortion. Only when we see things as they are can we begin to understand them, and only when we understand them can we work with them skillfully. It is also important to remember that self-awareness is not a destination. It is a continuous unfolding. The more we become aware, the more we realize how much there is to see. Layers upon layers of conditioning, belief systems, emotional residue, all waiting to be uncovered. And yet, this journey inward is not heavy. It is liberating. With each step into awareness, we shed illusions. We stop identifying with every passing thought. We begin to distinguish between the self that watches and the patterns that play out within us. Through this inner seeing, we learn to pause before reacting. We learn to respond rather than impulsively act. We begin to recognize the triggers that cause suffering and the attachments that lead to conflict. And in that recognition, a new space opens, a space where choice becomes possible. This is the seed of transformation. This is where peace begins, not in changing the world around us, but in changing the way we relate to our own inner world. Self-awareness brings us face to face with the truth of who we are in each moment. It strips away the noise of social expectation, the masks of performance, and the distractions of the external world. It reveals not only our limitations but also our potential. In that silent observation, we begin to remember that we are not just the sum of our experiences, our thoughts, or our past. There is something deeper, something still, that has always been present, watching, waiting, untouched. The more we connect with that inner presence, the more we begin to experience a kind of peace that does not depend on anything outside of us. The present moment is the only place where life truly happens. Yet, most of us are rarely fully present. We are caught in a constant cycle of regret over the past and worry about the future. Our minds race with thoughts of what should have been or what might be, pulling us away from what is. This resistance to the now creates a deep tension inside us, a subtle war between our desire to control life and the reality of how it unfolds. Acceptance of the present moment is not weakness or passivity. It is a powerful act of inner alignment, the moment when we stop resisting life and begin to live it as it is. When we resist the present, we resist ourselves. If we are angry, we judge the anger. If we are sad, we try to push it away. If we feel lost, we pretend to be certain. This resistance creates suffering because it divides us. One part of us is feeling, and another part is fighting that feeling. In that inner division, there is no peace. Acceptance does not mean approval. It simply means acknowledging what is here without denial, without distortion. When we accept what is, we stop adding extra layers of suffering on top of our experience. The mind is conditioned to escape the present moment. It tells us that something is missing, that happiness lies somewhere else, in a better job, a better relationship, a better version of ourselves. But this pursuit never ends because we are always running away from now. What we fail to realize is that the peace we seek is already here, hidden behind our resistance. The moment we stop fighting what is, we open ourselves to the possibility of transformation. Acceptance allows healing to begin. It does not trap us. It frees us from the illusion that peace is somewhere else. To cultivate acceptance, we must first become aware of our resistance. It shows up in many forms: frustration when things don't go as planned, anxiety when we cannot control an outcome, guilt when we fall short of expectations. These reactions are signs that we are not at peace with the present. But rather than judging these responses, we can use them as gateways. Each time we notice resistance, we can pause and ask, "Can I be with this, just as it is?" That question invites us to soften, to open, to meet life on its own terms. Breathing is a powerful anchor to the present moment. The breath does not happen yesterday or tomorrow. It happens now. By bringing attention to the breath, we reconnect with the body, with the experience of being alive. When the mind begins to drift into stories or judgments, the breath offers a simple, silent invitation to return. In that return, we find space. We begin to observe the arising and passing of thoughts, emotions, and sensations without being pulled into their drama. This space is the birthplace of peace. Acceptance also teaches us humility. It reminds us that we are not in control of everything. There is a vast intelligence moving life forward. Seasons change, tides rise and fall, the heart beats without our permission. When we stop trying to force life into our narrow vision, we start to trust its natural rhythm. We begin to understand that even difficulty has its place, even discomfort can teach. Instead of asking why something is happening to us, we begin to ask what it is revealing within us. In that shift, suffering becomes meaningful. In accepting the present, we also begin to accept ourselves, not the idealized version we show to the world, but the raw, honest truth of who we are in this moment, imperfect, evolving, human. This self-acceptance is the foundation of real growth. When we stop fighting ourselves, our energy is no longer wasted on shame or denial. It becomes available for awareness, for clarity, for change. Paradoxically, it is only when we fully accept ourselves as we are that we create the conditions for genuine transformation. Acceptance is not a one-time event. It is a moment-to-moment practice. Life will continue to present challenges, surprises, and changes. But with each new moment, we are given the opportunity to respond with resistance or with openness. When we choose openness, we step into a different relationship with life. We stop being victims of our circumstances and become participants in our own unfolding. This is not the path of passivity. It is the path of courage, of surrender, of inner strength. There is a quiet power in simply saying yes to this moment, not because it is perfect, but because it is real. In that yes, there is peace, not the peace of escaping reality, but the peace of embracing it. This peace does not depend on external conditions. It arises from within, from the simple act of being fully present, fully aware, and fully accepting of whatever life brings. Restlessness is a symptom of a mind that has not yet learned to be still. It arises when we are pulled in many directions, distracted by desires, overwhelmed by responsibilities, or unsettled by uncertainty. In such a state, the mind jumps from one thought to another like a monkey swinging from branch to branch, never satisfied, never at ease. Discipline is the structure that transforms this chaos into clarity. It is not about suppression or rigidity. It is about creating a steady rhythm in our lives that supports focus, awareness, and calm. Without discipline, our energy is scattered. With discipline, our energy becomes purposeful and strong. Many people misunderstand discipline as a form of punishment, a harsh set of rules that limit freedom. But real discipline is not external, it is internal. It is the conscious choice to do what is beneficial over what is merely pleasurable or easy. It is the ability to guide the mind rather than be ruled by its impulses. Just as a river needs banks to flow with power and direction, the mind needs discipline to realize its potential. When our actions are rooted in intention rather than impulse, we create a life of integrity and meaning. Discipline begins with small, consistent actions. It is the daily decision to show up, to sit in silence even when the mind is noisy, to move the body even when motivation is low, to eat mindfully even when cravings appear. Each of these acts is a training of the will, a reminder that we are not slaves to our thoughts or habits. Over time, these small efforts build a foundation of strength within us. We begin to trust ourselves because we see that we can stay committed even when it's uncomfortable. The practice of discipline also teaches patience. In a world obsessed with quick results, discipline reminds us that meaningful change takes time. A tree does not grow overnight. Muscles are not built in a day. The mind, too, requires time to become clear, calm, and focused. Through discipline, we learn to delay gratification, to resist the urge for immediate comfort in service of something deeper. This delay is not deprivation, it is an act of wisdom. It is choosing lasting fulfillment over temporary escape. In moments of restlessness, discipline becomes our anchor. When the mind begins to wander, the disciplined person brings it back, not with force, but with consistency. Over and over, We return to the breath, to the task at hand, to the intention we set. This returning is the heart of the practice. The more we do it, the stronger our capacity becomes to stay grounded even in turbulent times. Like a martial artist who trains the same movement thousands of times, discipline sharpens our inner focus until it becomes second nature. Discipline is also a form of self-respect. It is the recognition that our time and energy are precious, and that how we use them matters. When we waste time on distractions or indulge in habits that drain us, we dishonor our potential. But when we live with discipline, we affirm our worth. We say to ourselves, I am worthy of effort, I am worthy of care, I am worthy of the strength it takes to grow. This sense of self-respect does not come from external achievement, but from the inner alignment between our values and our actions. There will be moments when discipline feels difficult. There will be days when the old patterns try to pull us back. In those moments, it is not motivation that carries us forward, it is commitment. Motivation comes and goes, but commitment remains. We do the practice not because we always feel like it, but because we have decided that it matters. That decision, made again and again, becomes the compass that guides us through confusion and resistance. Discipline also brings clarity. As we begin to eliminate distractions and focus our energy, we start to see what truly matters. We realize how much of our suffering comes from chasing things that do not nourish us. We recognize the ways in which we've been scattering ourselves in the pursuit of meaning, when in fact meaning arises from depth, not from breadth. With disciplined attention, we begin to go deeper into everything we do, whether it is meditation, work, relationships, or rest. This depth brings richness and peace. Eventually, the disciplined life becomes a joyful one. Not because it is free of effort, but because it is full of purpose. There is a quiet satisfaction in knowing that we are living intentionally, that we are not just reacting to life, but shaping it through conscious choices. Discipline becomes a path to freedom, not the freedom to do whatever we want, but the freedom from being ruled by restlessness, distraction, and doubt. It becomes the path through which the mind is refined, the heart is steadied, and the soul is awakened to its true strength. Peace is not something we find in the world. It is something we remember within ourselves. Throughout this journey, we have explored the deep truth that no matter how far we run, we cannot escape who we are. But this realization is not a burden. It is an invitation to stop running, to stop resisting, and to begin returning to ourselves with honesty, discipline, and stillness. By developing self-awareness, we begin to see clearly what lies beneath our surface. By accepting the present moment, we end the inner battle and start walking in alignment with life. Through discipline, we build the inner structure needed to move from confusion to clarity. And in stillness, we discover that the strength we've been searching for was never out there. It was within us all along. This is not an easy path, but it is a worthy one. The more we walk it, the more we realize that peace does not come from changing our circumstances. It comes from transforming our relationship with ourselves. The journey begins not in the future, not in the past, but in this moment. Right here, right now, stillness is often misunderstood. In a world that moves fast and praises action, stillness can appear unproductive, passive, or even empty. But true stillness is not the absence of movement. It is the presence of awareness. It is a conscious state where the mind is not pulled by every thought, not swayed by every emotion, not reacting to every external noise. In stillness, we return to ourselves. We stop chasing and we start listening. Beneath all the chaos, the ambition, the confusion, there is a place within us that is calm, clear, and unchanging. That place is our strength, and it is discovered not through doing more, but through being fully present. Stillness is not something we find outside. No matter how quiet the environment, if the mind is restless, there will be no peace. We can go to the mountains, sit in a silent room, turn off all devices, and still be filled with noise. The source of our agitation is not the world, but our relationship to it. Stillness begins when we stop identifying with every passing thought. It begins when we recognize that we are not the content of the mind, but the space in which it arises. That shift from identification to observation is the doorway to stillness. To cultivate stillness, we must first recognize our habitual tendency to escape it. We fill our days with tasks, conversations, distractions, and stimulation, not because we need all of it, but because stillness feels unfamiliar, even uncomfortable. In the absence of noise, we come face to face with ourselves. Old emotions arise, unresolved questions appear. The ego, which survives through activity and achievement, feels threatened. Yet it is precisely in this space of discomfort that transformation begins. Only in stillness can we begin to see what is truly going on beneath the surface of our lives. Stillness does not mean doing nothing. It means doing with full presence. Whether we are sitting in meditation or walking through a forest, stillness is the quality of attention we bring. It is the silence between thoughts, the pause between breaths, the moment of awareness before we speak or act. It is not created, it is uncovered because it is already within us. Every human being carries this stillness, but we rarely access it because we are always looking outward. The more we turn inward, the more we begin to feel it. One of the profound powers of stillness is its ability to reveal truth. When the mind is noisy, everything becomes distorted. Our perceptions are clouded by fear, desire, and memory. But in stillness, the mind becomes like a calm lake, able to reflect clearly. We begin to see things as they are, not as we imagine them to be. We notice the subtle ways we deceive ourselves, the stories we've been telling, the attachments we've been clinging to. This clarity is not harsh, it is liberating. It opens the way for insight, understanding, and wise action. Stillness also strengthens our resilience. In moments of crisis or stress, it is not panic that helps us. It is the capacity to remain centered. The one who can be still amidst the storm does not lose themselves in it. This inner stability is cultivated not through external success, but through repeated contact with the quiet center within. The more we practice stillness, the more grounded we become. We stop reacting impulsively and start responding consciously. We begin to live with intention rather than urgency. Another gift of stillness is connection. When we are quiet within, we become more attuned to the world around us. We listen more deeply, speak more wisely, and feel more compassion. We stop rushing past life and start meeting it fully. Relationships deepen because we are no longer distracted or defensive. We are present. We stop needing others to fill our emptiness and start relating from a place of wholeness. Stillness gives us the space to feel, to understand, to connect, not just with others, but with life itself. Stillness is also where creativity is born. When the mind is not cluttered, insight arises spontaneously. Ideas flow without effort. Solutions appear where there was once confusion. Great artists, thinkers, and sages have always understood the importance of solitude and silence, not to withdraw from life, but to return with greater clarity and purpose. In stillness, we tap into a source that is beyond the rational mind, a deeper intelligence that speaks not in words, but in intuition and knowing. The path to stillness requires patience. It is not a switch that we flip, but a practice that we return to again and again. There will be times when the mind resists, when silence feels heavy, when nothing seems to happen. But even in those moments, the practice is working. Each breath, each moment of awareness, each conscious pause is a step closer to that inner sanctuary. And over time, that sanctuary becomes our home, not an escape from life, but the place from which we truly begin to live.